Hello, this is Becky Brown from 8K Miles, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, CRO Analytics for Sponsors. 8K Miles is a cloud and analytics company with a rich history in the pharmaceutical space. Today's speaker is Prasad Saristi. Prasad heads the analytics business unit of 8K Miles, which is focused on delivering world-class analytics solutions, products, and services to the pharmaceutical, healthcare, and finance sectors. I hope you find the webinar to be valuable, and please feel free to anonymously type in your questions, which we will address at the conclusion of the presentation. Prasad, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Becky. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. We have an interesting agenda today. So the session is expected to last 30 to 40 minutes, and then we will wrap up with questions. To begin with, we will talk about the analytics focus at 8K Miles very briefly. Then we will jump right into our experience, 8K Miles experience, the analytics team experience, working with CROs and study sponsors on clinical study budgets. And we'll talk about some of the challenges that sponsors especially encounter in working with CROs and how to address challenges. When we discuss those challenges, we'll also be going into the demonstration of a system that is specifically designed and developed for this purpose. Then, like I mentioned before, we'll wrap it up with questions. So 8K Miles analytics team essentially does 5 things, and we like to think we do those really well. The first is seamless data connectivity. There are a large number of systems within each organization where typically data resides, and the data continues to grow in those discrete software systems. We help organizations insights to those organizations by connecting these various data sources so that there is seamless connectivity across multiple functional areas like human resources, finance, billing, invoicing, etc., even knowledge content management systems, so that our customers are able to get valuable insights from connecting these various pieces of data. Then the other thing we do is real-time self-service insights. This is a new trend growing in organizations. 5 to 10 years ago, most of the business intelligence tools were set up at that time could not cater to every group within the organization. So typical flow for information with respect to business intelligence works on a request basis. So a department sends a request to a centralized team, they generate the reports and send back. But with some of the newer tools like Tableau, ClickView, etc., we're now able to democratize the business intelligence insight process, and we're able to deliver these insights to a large number of users within the organization. 8K Miles is also one of the cutting-edge organizations working on machine learning and predictive analytics algorithms. So we provide that as a service to our customers to solve their individual problems. Then the other 2 things we do are closely related. High-performance analytics. This is where the velocity of the data is high, and big data analytics. This is where the volume and variety of data is high. So we help set up environments to process these data and again provide insights to various groups within the organization. So we have a lot of experience working with CROs and sponsors, especially in the area of clinical budgets. And over the years, we have noticed a number of challenges. For example, recently we worked with a pharmaceutical company, a large pharmaceutical company, and some of the challenges that are shown in this slide are very typical of a large number of organizations, but these were specific to the organization that we recently worked with. First is they had difficulty in comparing CRO bids once the RFP was sent out, getting those bids back, having to do an apples-to-apples comparison. There was no proper methodology and tools available to do that. There is also a lack of there was lack of a method to do a quick ballpark estimate based on historical data. You might have thousands of studies that you've conducted over the last few years, perhaps last 5-10 years, and that data has a number of insights which could then be used to predict some of the future trends. And that was lacking because a lot of these data was residing in Excel spreadsheets. Then there's also a lack of visibility into key metrics across studies. So, for example, cost per CRF, cost for the entire study per CRF, cost per subject, cost per site, and the trends. How do these metrics change over therapeutic areas, indication phases, etc.? Some of these insights help you manage the clinical study budgets better. Then there was a lack of ability to consolidate the various pass-through costs that were being spent on these numerous studies and see if there are any areas where savings could be obtained. Then there was also a lack of a visibility into the future of resource allocation, resource costs, also to see where areas of optimization could be obtained in those areas. So all of these issues are solvable, but because the data resides in individual Excel spreadsheets or discrete databases, it is very difficult to obtain those insights. So how do we address these challenges? So we have designed a system that specifically addresses all these challenges. And if you look at the functionality of it, firstly, it starts with RFP generation. So our system is able to take in specifications and then provide insights into what specifications may be required to be filled for each of the study, what may be optional, what may be essential for generating the RFP. The RFP is generated, the Excel spreadsheet is generated. Once it is generated, it is sent to the CROs. They fill in. Once the budgets are obtained back in Excel spreadsheet format, they're imported into the system. And once they're imported into the system, robust comparison can be done. So you can run analytics on the bids that were imported into the system. From there, we select obviously one of the most attractive bid and make it into a work order. From that point onwards, work order management starts, which is mostly to do with updating the work order with change orders, etc. So once we have captured this information right from RFP generation to work order, we now have the capability to run reports. So there are two kinds of reports that the system runs: operational reports and analytics reports. Operational reports are reports that are used on a day-to-day basis for the vendor outsourcing leads to perform their tasks, and the analytics reports are generated to obtain insights that we were talking about earlier. So let's look at some of the functionality associated with RFP generation. So like we talked about, there is a list of specifications that you can access from the historical perspective. Then you can enter study specifications before generating the RFP. Then you have optionally the capability to generate specifications for the entire study based on 10 or 15 core specifications by looking at the historical data. You can also choose to assign multiple portions of the study to various CROs. That is useful when, for example, you would like to take 2 or 3 CROs to bid on the clinical portion of the study and the other 2 or 3 CROs out of your list to bid on perhaps the data management portion of things. So the other key functionality that is extremely useful is that when you're starting a new study, it could be quite valuable to have at your fingertips other similar studies that you've done in the past. So we have these machine learning algorithms that will go into your database and find studies that are very close to the current study that you've just started. That will give you a very good idea of what to expect, perhaps how many change orders you could expect, perhaps run some metrics on those studies to see what the cost per CRF was, what the cost per subject was, etc. Perhaps see how many countries those studies were done, etc. The other thing we talked about is that based on specifications and looking at historical data, you're able to generate ballpark estimates by clicking a button in our system. So once the specifications are in, then the system generates the Excel spreadsheet, which is then sent to the CROs. When it comes back, we get into the bid grid import and importing process. It's a user-friendly wizard that lets you import the spreadsheet sent by the CROs. And of course, the important functionality that is associated with importing anything into a system is validations to ensure that there is a good quality control. For example, you could mark certain activities, certain columns, certain rows as mandatory, and the system would check for that. It would also perform basic checks based on whether you've asked for a certain, if you've asked for clinical management services, site monitoring, etc. services to be part of the RFP. If they're not filled, blank, missing rows, all of those can be identified by the systems as well. Then once the documents that were sent by the CROs, those are also imported into the system. So in the background, there's a document management functionality that enables you to go back to any bid in the system and download the exact documents that were sent by the CRO. Then once the import is done, our system automatically calculates the metrics for each bid and stores it in the background of the system. So so now we get to the bid comparison stage, where the various bids received from the CROs by the sponsor can be compared. So you can do spec comparison, budget comparison, and even budget comparison using analytics, which is how far away from your average cost per something your current budget is at. So you're able to get a good idea of how the budget stands compared to your historical studies. Then the work order management is really about once you've picked one of the bids and marked it as a work order, you're then able to maintain some information for that work order, for that particular budget. If there's a tracker that you can update, you can also look at cost phasing, which means that our system automatically takes the budget and based on the milestones in the budget, it provides you a cash outflow forecast for the duration of the study on a month-to-month basis. It can be incredibly powerful to map out the cash flow for various studies and consolidate it and see your entire department's budget on a month-to-month basis for the next, say, 24, 36, or even 60 months. Then, like we discussed, change orders are managed here. Operational reports, like we talked about earlier, bid comparison is a huge part of that. Milestone summaries is a part of that. Payment summary, which is what payments for what milestones, it's a big part of that as well. And then metrics for each study are also available on right after saving each bid. Analytics reports, really here, sky is the limit, because once the data that is been imported and it's been maintained in the system is all in one system, you're able to run various reports and slice and dice the data according to your needs and share those reports internally as well, and set some triggers to notify you of certain things that could be potentially of interest to you. So multiple bid comparison is an example of an analytics report. Analyzing metrics across therapeutic areas, indications, phase, etc. Historic versus new data. That's another example of an analytics report. And drilling down and analyzing multi-level information, that's another use case of analytics reports. So that really encompasses the entire functionality of the system. We will go into the demonstration and look at those screens in a brief moment. But Because of our expertise in big data, analytics, and cloud technologies, there are a couple of value-added features that are extremely useful as you use the system on a day-to-day basis. The first is we have Google-type search capabilities across all data. So you're able to enter things like Paraxelan Phase 3 as a free text search, and the system will go and search for all studies that meet that criteria. So that search can be extremely useful to dig and identify the right information. Then machine learning-based identification of similar studies, we talked about that earlier. So as your database grows over time, and as you import, when the system goes live, you probably would import thousands of existing studies into it, and the system is able to find closeness between two studies. So if you're starting a new study, it will go and find out all the other studies that are very similar to the current study. Extremely valuable as well on a day-to-day basis. So at this point, I would the presentation is concluded, but we'll go and look at the system itself, so you get an idea of the screens and the usability of it. We will look at the analytics report. So we have, on the average, when we engage with a customer, a sponsor customer, we do anywhere from 30 to 50 reports based on the requirements of the various groups that would like access to these reports. So one of our first example is budget comparison. Here you're able to compare two budgets across various functional areas, and you're able to drill down deeper as well. So for example, you could look at biostatistics and say, I would like to only look at biostatistics. And once you do that, you're able to dig deeper in understanding where the difference in these two budgets is coming from within biostatistics. And they're all color-coded to show the percentage difference where the second budget is either lower or higher than the first budget. You're also able to add, you can also do a comparison across multiple budgets, etc. So it's very interactive that way. Then another report that is very useful is role charge analysis. It's a common report that we deploy for all of our customers. And this is where you would like to see the average total charge and average total cost across the various roles that the CRO is using. And so you're able to look at some trends. And also these reports are, again, as I said, highly interactive. They can be modified by the user themselves. So here I would like to show you an example where I would like to go and edit and obtain additional insights to what's already shown here. As you see here, what comes very obvious is that the role of project advisor, the average total charge is high and the average total cost is also very high. So if you're looking to optimize your budget and trying to bring some certain focus on a certain role, you might feel that project advisor is a role that you focus on in negotiating, etc. But that may not tell you the full story. So let's try to look at, say, the average total, sum of the total charge. Is that role being used really on an ongoing basis across all studies? So I would like to drag and drop it there and see what happens when you color it according to the sum of the total charge. Then you see that the project advisor role and the project director role kind of disappears, and you get the focus on the clinical research associate role. So some of these interactive metrics, interactive reports can be run by the users themselves and don't need any intervention from our part once we set up the reports. Another example of a useful report is key metrics. So fully loaded cost per site month, or a fully loaded cost per subject, total cost per site, total cost per CRF across various budgets, and how does that compare from budget to budget based on, say, created dates. So you can filter, show me in the last 6 months, and it will give you a list of all the budgets, and you can then run comparison reports across those budgets. So it's very powerful to gather the insights, slice and dice the data. I've only shown 3 reports. Typically, each client implementation has about anywhere from 30 to 50 reports. We don't have time to go through all of that in an introductory webinar like this. We'd be glad to do that on a one-on-one basis. So with that, that concludes my presentation for today. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to take them. I'll leave my contact information on here for your reference.
Great, thank you, Prasad. It looks like we do have a couple of questions. First one, is this solution customizable to our company's big grid?
Yeah, that's a very good question. What we do is we do an implementation in which the entire list of activities, departments, sub-departments, the unit names, and the various terminology or therapeutic areas, everything is customized before we go live for your organization. And some of this information, especially activity names, adding a new activity, deleting an existing activity, renaming an existing activity, all of this can be maintained by yourself once the system goes live. So the short answer to your question is yes, it is very customizable.
Okay, very good. And can we keep track of payments on milestones?
Yes, so as we saw the milestone screen actually has the date of the milestone, the name of the milestone, and the start date and the end date for that particular milestone. And we have had cases where we worked with a customer to add a couple more columns to that particular screen that shows the amount due. So yes, you can keep track of the payments for the various milestones.
Okay. And another question, can we maintain different rate cards ourselves?
Yes, rate cards are very useful for scenario analysis. So if you would like to, once you've received a budget from a particular CRO, you would like to apply another rate card and see what the cost would be with the application of that rate card, you can easily do that in our system. So we have a master list of rate cards that can be updated on an ongoing basis. You can name each rate card a different, give each rate card a different name, and then apply them on an ad hoc basis whenever you're looking at a budget.
Okay. And it looks like we have one last question. Can we get the analytics report as a standalone system?
Yes, that is definitely a valid use case. So if you have a database in which you have all of these budgets stored, then we can deploy our workbooks, our analytics workbooks, on your particular database, or we can deploy them either on your on-premise database, or we can deploy the analytics reports on the cloud and connect to your on-site database.
Great, very good. Thank you, Prasad. And it looks like that concludes our presentation and questions for today. Thank you very much for attending the webinar. We look forward to talking with you, and we certainly welcome any additional questions that you may have. Please take note of our contact information, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.